Hey, welcome. My name's Craig. Today's video, I'll be walking you through all the amazing features of the Ableton Move. Now, the Move is a new standalone portable device from Ableton, and it's got some bad press recently because it's only got 4 tracks. People are complaining about limitations, but is that necessarily a bad thing? Let's unpack all its features and see what it can do. So first off, let's take a look at the connections on the back. You see here we have the on button. We have an audio out, we have audio in, and that is for an external microphone as we can record directly into this machine, but more on that later. We have a MIDI in and out. You can only select it to either receive MIDI or send MIDI at one time. You can't have it going both ways just yet. And then we have a USB for charging, also connecting it to Ableton Live, which if you didn't already know, this can control Ableton Live as well as work as a standalone device. More on that later. When you first turn on this device, it will ask you to set up your Wi-Fi. It's important to do that because you'll get all your updates and you'll probably need to do an update right out of the box. So do that. Once you've done that, you'll be here. So this is called Set Overview. Now yours might look slightly different. Right out of the box, you only have 4 and they're like demo sets you've been given. See here, I've been playing around with it quite a bit and I have some sets. So you have 32 spaces to save sets. You can also transfer them to live and store them off the device. But to create a new set, all you do is hit a new pad and we've created a new live set. Now to enter the set, you can simply press this dial here and it will take you into session mode. We'll go into that in a bit more detail a bit later. But to go and see the individual tracks, you click on these buttons here and they will take you through the individual tracks. And when you create an empty set, Move generates presets for you randomly. So it will give you a drum kit. It'll usually give you a bass underneath there, then some kind of pad, and then some kind of lead instrument. Like I say, one of the limitations of this device, which we're going to unpack in a bit more detail as we go through, is it only has 4 tracks. Okay. Now each one of those instruments can be swapped out. So you could have 4 drum racks or 4 samplers or whatever. But this is just a default set. It's giving you some sounds just to get up and running really quickly. You'll notice with Move, a lot of the sounds are really good. They've really spent a lot of time on the sound design, the sound selection, the presets. So they're super inspiring and they get you up and going right away. So let's start off by creating a beat. So I'm going to go up to the top here of my drums. So play the sounds on the pads, you just simply hit. Switch out those sounds, simply click on the pad here, make sure it's scrolled all the way to the left, press down. Then you can go through all the different drum kits here. Now this happens in real time, so if I audition a pad here, you can hear them all. If you scroll all the way up to back, you then have the different categories of sounds. You have acoustic, electronic, and hybrid. So I'm going to go electronic, and I'm just going to choose good old 909. So let's program in our first beat. Okay, so notice there, I just played in the beat, and I pressed this button here. This is Ableton's magic button. Now it's featured on the Push 3, Move, and also in Live, and it is MIDI capture. Ableton has developed this device. It's always listening to what you play with MIDI. Regardless to if you've pressed record or not, it will capture the MIDI in the background. I'm not sure about you, but if you're anything like me, as soon as I press that horrible red button, all musical ability says, see you later, mate. And then whatever I want to play comes out 10 times worse than as if I played it without the record button. So then if you press this, it's always going to be listening. You could just be jamming away on an idea and go, oh, that was pretty good. Press that button and it will play it back to you. Now you see up here, it's giving me a tempo of 125.5. That's what it calculated my kick drum pattern to be. Now, if you see, if I hold down Shift, which is this 3 little line button here, it gives me a whole bunch more settings. Now these, I really like the fact that these are hidden away. It makes the device look very sleek like this. And then we have a lot more stuff we can access. So if we go to this little dial here that looks like a clock, that's the tempo, and we can adjust it by going up and down like this. So if I put it to, let's go 1, 2, 3 to start off with. As well as adjusting the tempo, we can tidy up this kick drum a little bit. We can hold down the Shift key and we can go to this little icon right at the end here, which quantizes things. Now you can see it's quantized by 100%. Now you can't adjust that in this little area here. We need to go all the way over to this like 3 little circle icon here, which is the 3rd space in. And that gives us like our global settings. So I have quantize, I can click on that here and adjust the global quantize setting, maybe put it to 70. And if I go back to there again, I've got the step grid, I've got counting and auto load on. Okay, so let's come out of that. So now I'm going to look at overdubbing with this capture mode again. Let's quantize that up. Nice. Now to adjust the volume of the individual pads, if you click and hold down, and then turn the volume dial down here, it will adjust the volume. Now if you turn this volume down here, it does the global volume, but if you want to do the individual pads, just click on them. I also have a repeat button as well, just like on the push. So we hold down the shift and we go to this little icon here, which looks like a little note repeated. So I have repeat rate, 16th note, or I can go here and choose the subdivision with this little dial here. Let's keep it on 16th note and let's find something. Cool, let's add something else in. Say if you didn't like that, you can press this back button here and that will undo what you just did. So let's try that again. Now let's look at this step sequencer here. This will show the individual steps that we have affected. We can go in and we can essentially edit the MIDI notes. So I'm going to turn this repeat off. So I'm going to select the pad and it will show me the pattern that we have. So you see here I have that da-da-da-dum. I just want that one there off. Nice, awesome. Now let's go in here and let's apply these three little lines here, which is groove. So we're going to apply some groove to this, get the drum beat swinging. Okay, so if I apply like 70%, let's try that. Maybe not as much. And that's a 1 bar loop. If we want to increase the number of bars, press this up here. We can adjust how many bars we have in the loop. So if we turn it to the right, it will increase. If we turn it to the left, it will decrease and it will go below a bar. So you can get some weird polyrhythms going on there. We're going to increase it to 2 bars. Now, if you look down here, the step sequencer has changed from the steps to the bars. So you can see here that's flashing, that's 2 bars. If I increase it, I will get more. Now I can also just select what bars I want out of those 4 bars. So I just want those to the loop. I just want those ones. Or if once I've selected those, I can't just have one loop in. I think you've got to select 1, 2, but if you want 4, you would select all 4. So let's go back to the first 2. And also if you did select or record, say 6 bars like that, or sometimes when you do capture, you might get the odd 5 bar. To delete the bars, you can simply just select the 4 that you would like, and that will get rid of the 5th bar. Okay, so we're just going to select our 2 bars there. If I press play, I don't have anything in the second bar here. So to copy across all the notes from this bar to this bar, we simply hold down the copy button here and you select what you would like to copy, and then you select where you'd like to paste it. And then I'm going to come out the loop mode here. I'm going to select this pad and then maybe just change this pattern up a little bit. There we go. Just a little bit of variation there. So now let's flip into session view and see that clip. This is our clip here. Now, if we hold down copy and we paste that one there, we will now have 2 clips. So what I can do is I can go into this one here, click there to navigate back into it. Then I can use the step sequencer to delete some of the notes there. So maybe if I delete some of these hi-hats here, this ride here. So I have, so it's a 2 bar phrase. So remember we need to go across to the second bar. delete stuff in there. So let's hear that. And go up here and bring in the next clip. Cool, so I have like an A-B section there. Let's go back into our main clip here. Now on this step sequencer, we don't just have the option to program in notes, we can nudge them around. So for example, if I go into some of these notes here, if I hold down this note here, I can select the note length, so I can make it a bit longer. I can use this here to nudge it off the grid slightly, just nudge it off. Yeah, so you can add a bit of kind of manual swing to notes and pull things backwards and forwards. Now you see here to the right-hand side of the drum pad, there is a chromatic keyboard. It looks like chromatic mode on the push controller, and that's exactly what it is. For each one of these drum hits, we have 16 pitch steps as well. We can also go up and down the octave and select the different pitches. If you don't see that there's a setting you need to turn on. So if I hold down Shift, it's this little kind of square button there. If it looks like that, it means it's not on. Turn it on. So now what we've got is we've got the ability to play in pitch as well. So if you have some harmonic samples, this opens up a whole world of possibilities. So you could have like a chord stab on there, and you could play the chord progression here. So then actually it doesn't just, it's not only 4 tracks, you've got, well, 16 pads with 16 monophonic tracks. So yeah, that's a lot more than just 4 tracks, eh? Okay, so you just simply select the sound that you would like. And then overdub some stuff. So now let's look at the overall effects and how we'd swap out sounds. And that's all to do with this menu up here. Press in, you can swap out the drum kit sound. What's really neat is it does that in real time. So if I press play, I really like that. Let's keep that in. Okay. So now if we want to swap out some of the sounds, if we come back here, we scroll over to the right, we have a little kind of sample icon. Now, depending on what pad I select, I can switch out the sample. So that sound there, I could switch that out. So if I press this in, I can go through here and also, if you go all the way to the top in these menus, you get back and then you can come out of the menu it's suggested. So that was a stab sound before, so you're in like the stab sub menu. It doesn't mean you have to have a stab, you can come out. So you got textures here, so let's go to textures. Random. Okay, so there you go. And then you come right back out the top here and you've got all your samples here. And this is where you'll access in user recordings your own samples. When we look at using this built-in microphone, this is where your samples will be stored. Come out of that, we press back. Now we go over to our effects section. So on the drum rack, you have a reverb send, and this is so that you can send the individual hits to that effect. Now, if you click in on this, you can swap the sound out. So you can go through all the different reverb presets, or again, you can go back and you can swap it out for another effect. The move is limited on the effects. Remember, limitations are the theme here, but limitations with a good intent. The effects you have is channel EQ, chorus ensemble, delay, dynamics, which is like a rack of dynamic-based effects, phaser, flanger, redux, reverb, saturator. That's it. That's all you got. So we were in reverb. Then let's just choose the first bit, arena tail. There we go. Now, if I choose a sound, say for example, this clap. Now, can you see here, this dial up here has turned blue. The more I increase it, the more it illuminates. And this is a thing with these dials here. You'll see when we start looking at editing things here, the more it's engaged, the more it will light up. So it gives a clear indication of how much things are applied. So there we've got none. If I increase it more, Okay, so that sounds a bit too much. So if we go down here and we can switch it out. That's nice. Nice. Great. Then we have a saturator, which this effect works on the whole kit. You can click in, go through all the different presets of the saturator, or just like always back, and you can switch it out for another effect. Let's keep it on saturator now, and the default preset is on, and look at some of these encoders. Now, what these encoders do change depending on what audio effect you've got and what you've got selected. A bit like the push 2 and 3. So if I literally touch the encoder, I don't need to change anything. They're touch sensitive. They will show you what they do, which is pretty neat. It means you don't have to turn it and completely mess up your sound. You can just literally tap on top and see what it is. So we have a dry wet here. So it's at 100%. We have drive, type, color amount, color frequency, color width, and color amount high. So if I drive it in here, I see too much and I roll it back. Nice. Okay, cool. So let's go all the way back to the drum kit now, and let's look at what the dials do on the drum kit. So you have transpose, you have the start point of the sample, you have the attack, hold, decay, playback effect, stretch factor, grain, size. Okay, so now these last three will change depending on the playback effect. Now, the instrument that's being run here is the drum sampler, which is new to Ableton Live 12.1. And if you've not already seen that, it is essentially a one-shot sample playback device with an effects section built in. Now, playback effect, we have a bunch of them in here. We have noise, sub-oscillator, ring mod, FM, 8-bit, punch, filter envelope, stretch. Now, stretch is the default one. If we hear that on this pad here, if I just bring it in, and then go. It acts as almost like a delay, but you can have a play around with some of those. The sub-oscillator and noise are really great for layering your samples. Now, what's interesting is basically the attack, hold, and decay. Although it comes before the effects, actually affect the effect and the sample. So if for example, if I change the effect here to like a noise, okay, we've got that on there, say, so you can really hear it. Now if I do the hold down, bring the decay down, see it affects both of them. Now, there is one more bunch of effects that are kind of hidden. So if I go and if I hold shift and press down, you see I've got main bank. And if I go to filter and setup, now that gives me the filter that's in the drum rack. So I can now go and, now it's only affected on the certain sounds. So maybe we can choose this one here. That's nice, filter that sound out a little bit. And we can pan it left and right as well. This one, let's pan a little bit to the left. Nice. There we go. We've got a cool sound going on there. So now let's move on. Let's start looking at building up some chords with this device. So if I choose another track here, usually what it will do on the second track down, it will create a bass. Sounds pretty bassy to me. And then the third track down, it will give you some sort of pad. So let's have a little look at that. Nice. First things first, these pads and the setup here, let's address the elephant in the room. This looks weird and crazy. Also, we can change this. This is chromatic mode. If I hold down shift and go into the menu, click on this, we can choose whether it's in chromatic or in key by pressing in. Let's go to in key, then we can choose our key. So at the moment I've got it in C minor. We can go through and choose the root note. Let's keep it in C, and then we can choose the scale. We have a whole bunch of scales going on there. So I'm just going to keep it in minor for now. So now that's set up. We have our root note here, and then we have the scale going from left to right. Then you see here, this note here, when it flashes the same, or like green, that means it's the same note. What's annoying about this is a bit like a note mode on the push 3, which is sequent or sequential. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a bit weird for playing chords. We would play it more traditionally like a piano, so that is like the diatonic triad. Then you get a bit stuck here. You have to go like, you have to go across the pads, which makes it a bit awkward for playing chords. I found if you use this kind of triangle shape here, you get like a add 9 chord, which sounds really nice. And it's diatonic, so that same shape can be moved around. It's quite a nice shape to move around. I just don't find that very appealing. Now, another thing you could do is you could voice it slightly different. For example, you could put the 5th in the top, or you could do like that. So there, I've just basically moved the 5th up an octave and the 3rd up an octave. Kind of opens the voicing up of the chord. Another thing you could do is if you go into chromatic mode, is I've put a link on the screen here, QR code, and also there's a link in the description below. There is a free PDF of some chord shapes that you can steal from the push 3. So it's a chord sheet that's optimized for the push 3 chromatic mode. But essentially now you have notes that are within the scale and outside of the scale. I just think this is a bit more optimized for playing chords. It feels a lot more open to it. No, essentially, the way to think of this note mode here is it's not like a piano, it's more like a guitar. So imagine this like a bass guitar. It's got 4 strings. We use the same articulation as a piano, but we play it like a bass. So for example, here, imagine this like a string. And then on this string, you would only play the notes that are illuminated. And then on this string, okay, now you can keep it in position as well. So you could have 1 finger per fret, or 1 finger per pad, I should say. I'm talking about bass guitar there, so. Okay, so that's how you play the scales. Now, how you play the chords, there's 2 shapes that I'd like you to get under your belt. So you've got the minor 7th shape, which is this, which is essentially thumb on one of the root notes or any one of the notes. Then you want to look for a pad that is illuminated, that is 2 pads to the left, 1 row up. And then we want to go same column as the root, but we want to go to the 3rd line at the top. Okay. Now if you move it to the left or the right, it's still a minor 7 shape. It's always going to stay the same on these pads here. It's like guitar. You learn like a power chord. You can play it anywhere on the fretboard, but it doesn't mean it's in key. So to stay in key, you need to keep with the illuminated notes. So for that, you're going to need to know a major 7th shape. So major 7th shape, we want to look for, it's like a note here that has another note next to it, a line up. And then we're going to use the 7th up here. So we get that kind of shape. There we go. We have, see, a chord sequence, and we could just play in something like that, 2-bar chord sequence. So let's try that, and let's use the capture. So we're going to go. Let's quantize that. So now let's change out that sound. So let's go up here, and we can scroll through these icons here. So this time we only have 3 because we don't have any samples to replace. So if I go all the way over to the right, we have basic square here. Now I can go through all these different synth sounds. Now the 2 synth engines we have on note is the drift synthesizer and wavetable. Now if you see that icon there with some lines, that's wavetable. If you see like 2 circles broken away, that's drift. Again, if you come all the way up to the top, you can select all the different sounds here. So I'm going to choose pads actually, and I'm going to scroll through it. Again, these sounds are in real time. You know what, I'm actually going to do this clip again. So I'm going to press delete. I'm going to make it twice as long for the chords because it feels like it goes around a bit too much. So let me just try that again. And I'm going to see, yeah, just record on top. Nice. Let's try some of these. That's a really nice sound. Okay, now we're talking. That's wicked. So now when you choose a synth, depending on which synth, if it's drift or wavetable, it will change what dials you have at the top here. So we have here low pass filter, so we can make it a bit more mellow if we want to. It's too mellow. High pass filter, filter envelope, attack, release, LFO. Nice. LFO amount. Cool. Okay, so we've got the sound. Come out here now, we've got 3 effects. So now if I scroll it to the left, we have chorus ensemble, which sounds great. And then we have reverb on it as well. So maybe let's change out the reverb. Let's have a little look at what sounds we got here. So do the dry wet. Nice, that's really cool. Yeah, some really nice sounds there. And so you got the chorus ensemble here again, all the different dials change. You can see here the dry wet. Now I appreciate those 2 views for playing chords can be a bit tricky. Experiment with them. I'm going to do a whole separate video on chords, which will be up here when it's ready, and it'll be linked in the description. But you can put one of these in the mix, which is a MIDI controller. So you just simply click it here and we put it in the input slot here. So we can adjust our settings by holding down shift, and we go to the little cog icon here. And this is where we can do our Wi-Fi update, all our stuff here, like brightness, advanced, move manager, all that stuff. And we're going to go MIDI, and we're just going to make sure it's to in only. It's annoying that we can't do it both ways. We can only have it in or out. We can, if we wanted to, connect Move to an external synth and use it as clock, or we can control another synth, which is pretty cool. Now, if I play in some chords here, then to control the track, well, I just go in and select the track. So let's look at doing something on top of that. Let's play like a little lead on top. And I'm just going to press play. Okay, so that's how you would use a MIDI controller. Now let's look at getting a bass line in. So let's select the second track down, which is a bass here. And I'm going to put this in key. Okay, go up here and press in key. Okay, so let's try a bass line. Okay, so switch out of sound. So let's make sure we're scrolled all the way over to the left, press in, and then we've got all our bass sounds here. Now, there's some fantastic bass sounds here. My favorite is this basic Jupo bass, it's Juno bass, but man, check this sound out. It's really fat. Okay, so now we can adjust the volume of the track by holding down this, and we can turn it down a little bit, maybe turn the bass one down a little bit. This one as well, let's try that. We can also add in some automation to these clips as well. So for example, here on this little synth robot lead here, if I go into some of the sounds here, like the filter cutoff, I could have that open and close like that. So let's have a listen to what it sounds like. Almost like a sidechain effect there. What's super cool is if I press capture, can you see that's turned red now? That means it's captured me turning the dials and it's recorded the automation in the background. Again, this is such a cool feature, this capture. Not only does the playing, but it does the automation as well. So cool that. So we could apply that maybe to the bass as well. So let's have a little look at that. Now we're on to the fun part, which is the sampling. So now this has a built-in microphone and we can add in samples. Okay, so this is where the limitations happen a little bit. We don't have a room for a whole sample track, but what we can do is we can sample in to drum pads. So I'm just going to do like some vocal like haze and ooze. And then what we'll do is we'll replace this lead track out and we'll put in some more melodic stuff. So let's go up to our drum rack here. Let's find an empty pad. We're not using this one here. So if I press the record here, now all I have to do is tap the pad and it will record. Now I have a few options where I can choose mic. If I tap it in, it acts as resampling. So that will resample everything you've just heard into one pad. So then if we come back out here, we can adjust the gain. So if I click on that, I can gain it up a little bit. So it's got a lot more gain. So I'm going to put it back. Don't want to do too much because we'll pick up all the hissing in the room. I'm going to get close to the microphone in a second. And if I press that again, then I can go to the headphone dial and I can choose if I want to monitor it or not. So if I turn monitoring off, you can't hear it. If I turn monitoring on, if I talk into the microphone, you should be able to hear me. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to do my little record. I'm just going to say, hey. Okay. So tap the record. Hey. I know, Grammy. Grammy goes to Craig Lowe. Woo, the crowd goes wild. Okay, so if I select that, it should... Hey, 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 hey. There it is. Fantastic, beautiful. Now, did you notice it automatically got rid of the silence at the start? Looks for the transient and then moves the start time right to it. So you can adjust that, and you can also adjust the transpose. So hey, 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 hey. There's the start time. It's the attack. Hold, it's okay. Playback effects, so we can maybe put 8-bit on it. Okay, so I'm going to go back into this record here. Can you hear this like little clicking? That's because the monitor's left on here. So if I go over here, turn that monitor off, you won't get any of those clickings going on there. So if I play this beat in, there we go, wicked. Okay, then it also, if I press back here and I get to the reverb send, which clicked on that, I'm going to turn that up as well. So I got so easy and quick. That's fantastic. Now let's look at doing some melodic stuff. Now I'm going to replace this horrible robot lead synth here. I know, I'm sorry. It's going. So how we get a melodic sampler up, which is essentially the simpler in Ableton Live, we're going to make sure we're all the way over to left, scroll all the way up, sorry, and go back, and we're going to go all the way down to templates. Then you see if we scroll down here, we have sampler. And now it doesn't have any noise. We need to sing in a note. So you choose the note. So if I press record here, and I choose a pad, it will record that note to the pad. Now you need to know what note you're singing. So if you sang in, so like a D, but you played a C, everything's going to be a tone out when you play it. You can transpose it back down, but it's slightly annoying. So we need to find out what C is. So if I come back here, maybe go to nice, beautiful. Okay, so now I have my horrible voice. Okay, so now let's change out some sounds. So immediately let's put a reverb on it. So you hear there my singing is not the best. It's slightly out of tune. So let's look at adjusting that. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go all the way to the sampler and we're going to sample. So we've got it there and we've got transpose. Here we go. So you've got a fine tune. No, it's only got... Okay, so let's mess around with like a little melody. Maybe we could duplicate the bars. So if I go in here to bars and bar length 2, and if I go to bars here, I go copy the notes across, paste them there. Then in the first bar, I'm going to get rid of those notes. So if we go through. So we can see the notes on the sequencer here now. If I go to bar 2, on this last note here, if I hold it down, I can now apply automation to that as well. So if I go here, dry, wet, this is going to be the effect, modulation, frequency, feedback. That's just going to apply it to that one step. find a more obvious one here. So maybe if this one here, let's try turning that all the way up. Feedback. What's also neat about the sampler in this view is the ability to do like a lazy chop. So we can chop the incoming audio manually and get kind of a melodic instrument broke across the pads. So I have a synthesizer here, it's Tetra 4. So I've got an empty drum rack here. How I did that is I went to templates, drum kit, and then I'm just going to go to this here. I'm going to make sure I can hear it. So I'm going to press play on my sequencer. Cool, and I'm going to monitor it coming in. How you do this is you just press the pad you like to record to, and then as soon as you finish, you go to the next one. Okay, so I'm just going to press play on this and start recording. Wait for it to complete the cycle. And then we go, I have my can you hear that the attack time here is a little bit off, so I can go in here, can put it back to the start. Nice. Now what I can do is I can go in here and I can turn on pads to full velocity. Also, each one of these pads I have this mode up here, so it's in key at the moment. If I go to chromatic, I have like so if you think about it, if we sequenced or recorded in a melodic step to each one of these, made a sequence on this, we essentially have, let me do the, I wrote down the calculations because my maths is so bad. It is 16 mono sample tracks per 4 drum racks. So that's 64 mono sample tracks. So for all those doubters out there, it is not 4 tracks. It is 64 tracks. Kind of. Okay, so now let's look at resampling our track as well. We're going to try and resample our track into we don't need these ones up here. Don't need that at all. So I'm going to go record, and in here I'm going to go to resampling, and then what I do is I'll just press play and it will play through anything in live. So now that's done. So I now have so it's a bit loud, let's turn it down. It's going crazy. Okay, so then you see there, you got the decay on the end, but you can put all your playback. Maybe if we did like 8-bit crunch. Yeah, so endless possibilities there with resampling as well. So the idea that this is a limited 4-track device is just rubbish. It's much more than that. Now let's look at saving a preset. So this track here on the sampler is sounding pretty good. If I go all the way over to here, now if I select the sampler here, if I hold shift, I get another option here. It says options. I click on that. I have the option to save preset. I save the preset. At present, we don't have any access to name it that I know of on here. That's where we can now look at starting to get things from Move onto the computer. And this is one of the best selling points of this machine. There's so many Groovebox out there that you've got the circuits, got OP1, things like that. Make a track and then you get that. And now what moment? Like, how do I get this out of this Groovebox? This is a pretty cool tune. This is where this thing kills all the competition, because we can now open it up on a desktop editor. Even better still, we can just open those sets right up in Ableton Live. Let's look at how we do that now. So if we come over here, we go down to our settings tab. We're going to go all the way over to Move Manager. I'm going to go how to access, and it says here, go to move.local / in web browser. First thing I'm going to need to do is connect our Move to the Wi-Fi or the computer. Now I'm just going to do this via a USB cable here, but you can do this via Wi-Fi as well, which is fantastic. Now we've gone to move.local and we've got it connected to the computer. A number will come up on the screen, 54. So that'd be different for everyone, okay? So now you see up on the screen here, I have everything with the Move. I have all the sets that are going on. I can rename them. So the set we were just working on here was set 14. I can rename it here or download it. I can download that and have a look at that in live in a minute. We have our recordings. Beautiful. We have our samples here. So I haven't loaded in any samples, but we can just drag in samples, one shots from, say, like Splice, Loop Masters, anything like that. And we have our presets here. So that was my sampler preset. This is where I can rename it. So I can rename it Vocal, and that will come up as that name on the Move. Cool. So now let's open up that set in live and have a little listen to it. There it is in live, kicking off. Okay. As well as being able to transfer sets to live, what we can do is we can also control live as well. So now we got this connected, and for this you will need the connection. You won't be able to do this over Wi-Fi. You can go back here. If we go down to control live, so we're connected via the USB-C. So I just plugged it in. It's automatically set up. You have this yellow line around the clips in live. Now I have my individual tracks here, which I can select with the track dial here. Now if I go into session mode here, the green line down here is our scenes. So now, also what's interesting with this pad is two of these sequencers underneath here represent the tracks. So if I press this here, it will select the track. If I select this one, select this one, select this one. Now, what's super cool with this is if I go here, if I come back to this track, if I go into note mode, so let me just change up the speed. So I've got it here and I can control the beat with the step sequencer here in live. So I go. And I'm also doing this, the momentary automation as well on the step sequencer. So this step sequencer in live on this is a game changer. This is going to be a really cool controller for live. Not only a standalone device, but a really cool controller for live. So that's it. I think I've unpacked most of the features. If there's anything you think I've missed, please pop it in the comments below. If you would like to see how to use chords on this in a bit more detail, I have a video up here. Hopefully see you in the next one soon.